And happy Wednesday to everybody out there in the world. Gentlemen, welcome to the Seahawks FanTable podcast. With me, as always, is Zeb and Ross. Gentlemen, how's it going? Happy Wednesday.
Good.
Happy Thursday.
See, that just doesn't work. Wow. Dead air.
Yeah, sorry about that. So, welcome, guys. It's Thursday. It's Thursday for Ross, which we don't recognize. It's Wednesday for everyone in the world, and most of the people listening to this later will be Thursday or Friday. So, welcome to you out there.
I'll slow down so you guys can catch up.
That would be great. You know, if you got lotto numbers that you're holding back there, I'd really love to get some.
Seriously.
It would be actually really crazy if the world worked like that. But
that would be awesome.
That would be very unfair in the fantasy world, and we would have to kick you out of all of our leagues.
Yeah, totally.
But
Feeling get suspicious like 6 years in a row.
Well, I mean,
never lost a game.
I'd like to think you'd do a little bit more than like use it to take advantage of fantasy football, but maybe you're a humble guy. You don't really need to brag.
Dude, I'm all about the Back to the Future, theory of changing the future and the past. Just get the sports almanac, and that's all I do.
We are the Seahawks FanTable podcast. My name is Sam. With me is Zeb and Ross, and we're here to talk about some Seahawks, gentlemen.
Go Hawks! Oh wait, that's
damn right we are.
Well, what's interesting is after this past game, the Seahawks right the ship. They get back to 2-2, right in the thick of the NFC and the NFC West. Russell Wilson threw his first interceptions of the year, but still ended with a 107-plus quarterback rating. Not the ESPN quarterback rating, but like the real, original quarterback rating. Huge injuries to the team and a blowout win that was looking really close early. Huge concerns about Cliff Averill. There was concerns about Reese Odiambu and a bruised heart originally, and then it became a bruised sternum. The defense came alive, though. Even with Cliff Averill out, Frank Clark played really, really well. They forced 2 turnovers for touchdowns, and that was the first time they had a interception return for a touchdown since the end of the season in 2015. So last year, they had 0 interceptions returned for a touchdown, which is kind of crazy to think about with this defense that we have come to love and cheer for and call one of the best defenses, in recent history.
Yeah. It's a product of people adjusting to it and how they also every year the defensive coordinator almost has changed as well and made it a slight changes to, I think, have kind of hurt it. We'll talk about that a bit later, though. Yeah. But I want to go back to Russell Wilson, 107 rating despite having 2 interceptions. That tells you how awesome the rest of his game was, right?
Yeah.
You know, hard. I mean, if you look at how the calculation is done, when you have 2 interceptions, it's hard to get anything over 90.
Yeah.
But still getting 107, I mean, he just lit things up.
He didn't throw any incomplete passes, pretty much, right? Like,
exactly.
Yeah, pretty much.
Never hit the ground hardly. The ball never hit the ground. It's either our catch or the
interceptions were like close calls. Like they both could have almost gone either way. So it's not like
the first interception was Wilson's fault. He underthrew it.
I'm not saying it wasn't his fault, but it wasn't terrible. It wasn't a terrible throw. Like
it wasn't like throwing to nobody.
Right.
Different
and Jimmy
could have had a play on the ball.
Right.
Jimmy could have played a little bit better defensive back on that play as well.
It wasn't like the interception return for a touchdown by Coleman, who basically just locked in on Jacoby Brissett, eyeing one dude, the whole guy, Kamir Eakin, and just like ate his lunch. That interception was so impressive because I don't know a lot about throwing the football. I'm not that kind of fan, but Brock Heward and Brock and Salk, the radio show, he said he said the three throws that he wants to see a quarterback make is a skinny post, and I forget what the other one, but it's the out route. And the reason why the out route is so hard is because the power you need to make that throw without getting it picked off is so huge, and that's kind of what happened with Jacoby Brissett in the interception. Like, that guy has to drive that ball to the sideline. Otherwise, it's a duck. I mean, I know this from playing
What?
Madden all the time. Like, if you throw it to the flat and there's a guy there, you're going to get pick six and you restart your game.
And I think normally Brissett can make that throw, but there was two things wrong with that play. Is he kind of tipped it early with a really early look, and also Coleman he talked about this post game. Coleman has spent time with Brissett together on the Patriots. They've practiced a lot together, and Coleman said basically like the way Brissett was going back and stepped back, he knew where the ball was going just from practicing against Brissett.
And I think that's the really interesting makeup of this team. And we'll talk about kind of the depth of this team because we're going to meet with some of this injuries. But I know last week all of us were very concerned. I think a lot of Seahawks fans were concerned about if we lose this game to a team that we're supposed to beat, how much can we really take out of it? It's kind of like, hey, if you're a huge favorite, what is there to gain out of actually winning because you're expected to win? I don't know if that's the way that we all felt afterwards, but I definitely was feeling a lot more confident in spite of the injuries and in spite of the early tie at 18-18.
How did you feel at half?
At half, I felt it was a pretty fluky game. I like what the Seahawks are doing. Now, mind you, I watched this game. We talked about this last week. I didn't go to the game, so I watched like 3/4 of the game at 3 speed to catch up in real time. And I'm sure you guys realize when I'm not texting you back, I'm not watching the game live because all of a sudden, like, I start texting you guys back, and there's like messages.
Third quarter, all of a sudden, Sammy like woke up.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like, oh, I overslept for the exam again, and I need to catch up with you guys. But I didn't feel that the offense was doing anything terrible. I kind of felt like, hey, this is how we played in 3 previous games. I definitely didn't expect it to like explode as it did. Zeb, I don't know what it was like when you were watching that game. You were watching it in real time, so it was probably very different. I didn't know the score when I was catching up, but I didn't feel overly worried.
Yeah, the first half pretty much felt like this whole season has felt so far. We're not executing as well as we should be. You know what I mean? It's kind of disappointing. We're not just completely screwing it up out there. We're not getting blown out or anything, but it wasn't inspiring much confidence, and it was cool to see in that second half when Russell kind of turned it on like he does and ran for that touchdown, and just to see the way the defense responded. Emotionally they got so high, and they just from that point the Colts could do literally nothing right for the rest of the game. So to see the way the defense was able to kind of feed off the offense, finally kind of giving them something to go on, was pretty telling in my opinion.
Is it more like it's always easy to look back at things, but the Colts only had 32 yards of offense in the second half. Like that's so mind-bogglingly small. Like teams average 7 yards on a drive, even if they go 3 and out, and they had the ball more than 5 times, and that's barely 1 first down every other play, and otherwise it's they just got nothing, and they were bailed out because they had probably more return yards on that interception than they did on offense, which is again just kind of crazy to think about.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's the stereotype. It's the tale of two halves, right? At halftime, I think you guys are lying, man. I was totally despondent, and I can't even lie about it because I was posting about it on our website. Here, I'm just gonna quote one time. Here's what I was writing online just before halftime. So we're now 4 games into the season. Can we start thinking for some reason we just aren't that good at the moment? We're about to go another half of football without scoring an offensive touchdown. So I was losing a bit of faith there.
Oh man, see, that's what happened.
I wouldn't say I was actually losing faith. I mean, I would never stop watching. I'm not that kind of person. But man, I don't think it was me alone. I think the whole world. I mean, not the whole world. Most Seattle fans were starting to wonder. 4 games in, it's starting to look like this a half. Or is all this magic done? Is our golden era? We have to rebuild or something? Or
it definitely felt like here we go again. That's definitely what it felt like.
Yeah.
Well, we're still not there.
I think Ross said if I were in your situation where I started the game at kick off and I was watching it all the way through, I'd probably feel a lot different. I'm not watching it in real time. I'm watching it like
when you watch
hyperspeed.
it fast forward, it's different.
So I don't really care about like, oh, what happened in between the play. Like, no, just play, like snap the ball, and I'm watching the game progress in that way. So it's
right.
It's not a realistic view.
Right. When you watch in real time, you have so much time to linger on. Like I wrote, I had time to write this. I was like, so one play after Luke Wilson has an awesome block, Jimmy Graham sort of does a flea flicker off of his hands to a Colts player for an interception. Yeah. And that's exactly. And then you have then you go to commercial break.
You can agonize over it a lot more.
3 minutes, like going, oh my god, this sucks.
Oh no,
and that's
no, and then. But again, like, the way that I was just watching it purely on the play with very little, I think, investment to it, just because I was like, I got to catch up, otherwise I'm going to miss everything. And obviously I didn't miss a lot, because ultimately what happened was they just exploded. Like, Russell Wilson just flipped a switch. He just decided, okay, well, I'm going to take over again. This is a home game. It wasn't raining, so it was a perfect opportunity for him to blow up, because that was my big concern last week. He doesn't look good in the rain, and it was not raining, so that was great. But that kind of leads us into topic number 1. So let's talk about topic number 1. And we're going to talk about first quarter grades. We're 4 games into our 16-game season. We're going to have a bye week in 2 weeks. But, what grades are you giving out on the offense, on the defense, and the coaching? Do you have an MVP? Do you want to talk about some of the off-season acquisitions? How do we did, and how is our draft looking? Zeb, I'm going to start you off with this. What grades would you give to our offense and to our defense?
Offense, I would probably say C-, D+, somewhere in there. It would be a lot lower if it wasn't for this last game, for sure. But I don't want to be too negative, so I'm going to say C- for the offense, just because I feel like I see them turning it on and waking up a little bit. Defensively, I'm going to go B+, just because of some of the big runs that they've allowed over the last few weeks. Outside of that, the defense has been spectacular. But I don't want to give them too much props. I want them to still have that chip on their shoulder. So
nice. Tell them they suck. You go on Twitter right now.
I don't think Richard Sherman would be satisfied with a B+, so I think that's probably enough.
Yeah. Ross, what about you? We'll just do offense and defense first before we get into the other stuff. How would you grade the Seahawks offense through 4 games?
I think in 4th grade, I've let me just go out, a teacher named Nordlund. And I never brought my science book home the whole year. And she gave me an A based on my potential.
I hate teachers like that.
And I'm sure she thought she was being nice and helping me out and everything, but in the long run, it did me a disservice because it took me a long time to learn the importance of hard work, and I'm not sure I ever really did learn it. Because so much of that would happen to me. Like, oh well, he has potential. Well, we know he's a smart guy. Hey. I always thought the opposite should happen. Like she should have looked at my potential and instead said, you know what, you didn't live up to any of that, so you're going to get an E or F or whatever they call it, or at least a D. And so I think I want to do that. I think I want to go with a D for the offense. They have the potential, like we saw in this one half, to do anything they want to do if they can just execute.
Yeah.
And they haven't executed. They haven't lived up to their potential. And so I'm grading on sort of a harsh curve, and I'm going to go D. Because you could do so much better with what you've got.
On the flip side,
Jimmy Graham, Baldwin, you got Russell Wilson. These are top 5 people at their position. You can't score more than a half sometimes.
How would you grade the defense if you're going to use that same scale?
B.
Okay.
They've given up a few plays that I think they should take care of, but. For example, I was comparing this week, just to get ahead of ourselves real quick, just to overly explain things. I was looking at the Rams stats and our stats, and the Rams are not really doing great defending the defense, the run either, and that's our weak spot as well. But on ours, if you take away, and if they really happen, so you can, but if you take away 3 or 4 big running plays, then our running defense looks really, really solid. Whereas the Rams, they're just giving up 5 yards a chunk every single time. They don't stop you.
Right.
And so I think some of our stats are sort of misleading. So I think they've done actually better than some of our stats look like. And you handled Aaron Rodgers really, really well. You shut down the Colts completely second half. I'd give him a B.
All right. For my grades, I'm kind of with you guys, but what I would say is from quarters 1 to 3, I'd probably give him an F, and in the fourth quarter, I'm giving him a B+. That's the way that I look at the offense. Because I agree with you guys, they don't deserve a great grade on offense just because it takes them way too long. We talked about this like a couple weeks ago. If the Seahawks played 65-minute games, they'd win them all. They just take so long to start up. And for them to just have this huge lead throughout the last half of that game, it was very impressive, and it's that potential that you think they should be able to do this on a really consistent basis, and yet they don't. On the defense, I'm actually going to give them a really high grade. I'm probably going to give them an A-. I agree with you that the running plays had huge problems, but I also think that because the offense does such a poor job of maintaining control of the ball, there's just so much more emphasis and so much more needed out of the defense when the NFL is just not suited for that. The NFL is not suited to give a defense time, It happened on Monday Night Football, There was less than a minute left, and that was enough time for someone to drive down the field and get a field goal. Defenses are just not sustained and meant to be able to stop offenses from scoring, even so to, mediocre offenses. So I'm really happy with the way they were. I think this is a turning point for the defense, and it's also a chance for them to kind of see like what they could be. All right, let's go to coaching and MVPs. MVPs, it's not a grade, but we'll just pick someone out. So, Zeb, what grade would you give to the coaching staff, and who's your MVP?
I guess it's so hard for me to give them a grade. I don't really even understand how all this stuff works. I'll give the coaching a B because I think that on offense in particular, that offensive line, I think we have seen improvement. We got a big pile of nobodies on the offensive line, and week 1 and week 2 they kind of looked like the worst, and after that they kind of don't look necessarily like the absolute worst anymore, and I have to believe that they've been coached up pretty well, and that's just offense. Defense, I don't, it's pretty much the same as it's always been, so I don't, they're always going to be at the top of their class as far as grades go. MVPs, I don't know. It's so early and so hard to. I don't know if there's any one guy beside. I guess it has to be Russell Wilson, right? Like, the defense has played well as a whole. There's been a lot of individual efforts, people that have contributed, but I don't think any one person stands out on defense as being the one to make things happen. So I got to give my MVP to Russell Wilson for the first quarter.
Ross, what about you? What grade would you give to the coaching staff?
D. God, I'm severe today. I'm giving them a D because their job is to have the players ready and in the best position to do their jobs every game, and they're not doing it. I mean, the first half of every game, or sometimes the whole game, we're not doing what we're meant to do. And if you're not doing your job, then you're not going to get a good grade on it. We're winning these games because we have massive talent. In the long run, our depth and our skill level over the Colts is going to crush them. But did the coaches really put our players? Did they have them ready to go from day one, from minute one? No. Were we ready to go against the Packers? No. Were we ready to go against the Titans? No. If you're not getting your players ready to go, then what are you doing? What is your job? I mean, that's a huge part of your job, and also scheme. Like, I don't think Chris Richard's a bad defensive coordinator, but every single time we get a new defensive coordinator, they take what they inherited and they put their personal touch on it. And I don't like what Chris Richard has done. I think he's made it even more safer. He's playing the percentages, but to be smart, but he plays the percentages so much that he forgets we're playing against human opponents who will then eventually learn how to play those percentages as well. And so he's transformed it. They're playing so much zone outside of the corners that we don't get the turnovers anymore generally. That we're still playing that percentage. Are you willing to be patient and move the ball all the way down? We're hoping you can't. But teams increasingly are that patient. So I think they need to, get a bit more creative and a bit more aggressive on defense. And the coaching staff has to have the players ready to play when the whistle starts the first kickoff, not the second one.
Yeah, that's fair. What about your MVP?
That's your job. Earl Thomas. The beginning of the season, Earl, nobody was sure how much Earl was going to be back. There were some signs in preseason, but Earl's come back, and it's made the defense still be effective. Because last season they could throw deep on us, and there weren't any interceptions when Earl was out, and you could even throw out Sherman because Sherman had to play a little bit different because he knew he didn't have Earl behind him. He had Steve Terrell, right? He's not a bad guy, but he's like a CFL kind of guy.
He is pretty bad. I mean,
he finally got a job. He was out of the NFL for a while, but he got a job too. Somebody got hurt. But anyway, I think he signed with the Chiefs when Eric Berry got hurt.
Yeah.
Maybe. Anyway. Which I think is ironic. He was backing up Earl Thomas. I was backing up Berry. It's just make a career out of backing up the best safeties in the game. It's not a bad gig.
Hey man, the Chiefs are 4-0 still, so they're obviously doing enough.
Yeah. Anyway, I would just go with Earl Thomas because he makes the defense work, and people will probably licking their lips thinking they get to exploit it just because Earl wouldn't make it all the way back, but Earl's all the way back.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I would probably give the coaching staff a C-. They're doing okay. I mean, they're 2-2. Winning in the NFL is hard enough, and they're not doing enough to put them in the position to win like we would expect them to. But, I think most of us, at least reasonably, would say, hey, you know what? That Green Bay game, it's not likely going to be a winner. That's a toss-up, and I don't even think we would say it's a 50-50 shot. I think we had a better chance to win than maybe we would have been given credit for, but still didn't win. In Tennessee, I would say probably people would say that's more like a 55 to 45% chance that we would have lost that game. So, I'm not overly concerned, but I also think that, with better coaching, with better preparation, we win both of those games if we execute better, which is entirely on the players, but also putting the coaches putting the players in those positions. My MVP is probably Bobby Wagner. He's just so good. And to your point, Ross, Earl Thomas does make so much of that defense go. He limits so much of what opponents can do because he is so good. He had a pick. He almost had a pick on one of the few deep throws that Jacoby Brissett took, but he always had to throw him into double and triple coverage. And Earl Thomas was on pretty much the numbers on the right side of the field, running cross field, and if it was a one-on-one situation, he probably gets a clean pick because he just tracked the ball so well. But instead, there's 3 Seahawks doing their job to defend the pass. They can't stop each other from oh, nope, you got this. It's not like baseball where they call the pop-up. They're all trying to stop that play from happening. But Bobby Wagner, I think, has just been so good. It's so impressive to see him just in the middle of everything, not just as the middle linebacker, but in coverage, in rushing the passer, in getting the defensive line ready. He's always in a position. He's always there. And I think that's something that I maybe don't fully understand or will fully understand until maybe he's gone. But I think he's been lights out. I'm really, really excited to see what he does for the next 12 games, hopefully for the next 15 games, because that'll be the Super Bowl. But Bobby Wagner is my first quarter MVP right now.
That's legit.
Yeah. All right. So let's go kind of quickly. We'll talk about just kind of off-season, how you grade it now, and the draft. You can do them either individually or separate. Zeb, how would you rate it after seeing them in action through 4 games?
I think for the most part, most of the guys that we've brought in to actually play a role are doing well, especially the guys that we got in free agency and trades. There hasn't been a lot of action for our draft picks outside of a couple of guys, but as far as the guys we acquired via trade or free agency, I think most of them the vets have come in and been strong and contributed quite a bit. Eddie Lacy is kind of still remains to be seen what he's going to do. So it's hard to really grade that one at this point. But with guys like Coleman and a couple of the other defensive linemen we brought in, I'm really happy with the way that's worked out so far. So off-season acquisitions, I would say a good solid B. Draft, I don't know. Nas has looked pretty good. He should have a touchdown.
Yeah.
Yeah, he should. Well, the outrage is still fresh.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't have a letter grade for our draft yet. It's just I don't think we've seen enough. I haven't seen enough personally. But I think it's looking good. So
fair. All right. What about you, Russ?
I've been really impressed. It's kind of rare. Marcus Smith had a sack and a half last game. J.D. McKissick 2 touchdowns off of 4 touches. That first running touchdown was amazing. His catch was amazing. I mean, they seem to nail it there. I mean, some of Coleman was 2 days or 3 days before the regular season really started. Maybe a little bit more than that, but I mean, some of them were really late, but they've all seemed to really contribute. I mean, they've all seemed like the non-draft ones have all been working out to an amazing degree, because you figure some of them are going to fail, but Eddie Lacy. But you know what? I think we may have written Eddie Lacy off a bit early. He contributed last game, and if the offensive line has made the strides that sort of looked like last game, they might be the type of line that he can actually fit in with. So he may, going forward, actually make some contributions. I saw Rod gave that with a B. I want to go A, but Eddie Lacy's still bringing it down because there's so much money spent on that, and it's still a question mark. But that could go up again. The draft, Chris Carson's not his fault. He got hurt. The lineman, I mean, I don't know. I feel like the draft is going to pay off dividends. I think it's going to be one of the stronger drafts. It's just not showing up quite yet. But even Darboh, I mean, in the preseason, I thought Darboh was a bit of they're just keeping him because of his draft status, and that's not very Seahawk-like. But I guess, even we have to be realistic. But in the regular season, he's looked legit, hasn't he? Yeah. He's not like a star, but he can get separation. He seems to have good body control. I mean, next year, I can see why they didn't want to put him on practice squad now, so I apologize. I mean, I was the one who really, really, really wanted Teen Williams to get that spot, but, I think I give the draft an incomplete. Obviously, it's way too early, 4 games in of the first season, but I'm going to go with potential, the Nordland way, and give him a B+.
I think it's fair. I got to break it down offense, defense in regards to the offseason acquisitions. On the defensive side, I think they've done a really great job. I'd give them an A. Sheldon Richardson, Dewey McDonald, even though he got injured. Terrence Garvin.
What would you grade just Sheldon Richardson?
What's that?
What would you rate just Sheldon Richardson? Because first game I thought it was an A+.
Defensive tackle is such a hard position, and I'm not a great analyzer of the game. Basically, we'll talk about this a little bit more in topic number 2. We'll get to that quick. But defensive line, it's such a hard thing. It's almost as if you don't hear their name, they did a great job because they didn't get blown up. They weren't on their ass all game. They weren't getting eaten up by their guards. They ate up space, and they added pressure. And that's kind of what...
But we kind of thought Sheldon Richardson was just going to be blowing stuff up every day, didn't we?
Yeah, but I think it's also hard because he's playing with guys like Frank Clark and Michael Bennett and, to recently, Cliff Averill.
Right, but shouldn't that have made it even more blow-upable?
But there's also a tendency for teams to scheme for that. You're not seeing a lot of 5-wide, sets against this defense because...
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I thought that was kind of the whole point. It's like you bring him in, and now how do you... Fine, you want to scheme to take out Sheldon Richardson, but then everybody else should be blown up. But we went one game with no sacks at all. We had 2 sacks last game.
Yeah, I think that goes to what's the coaching staff doing. So on the defensive side, I'm giving the offseason acquisitions an A. On the or defensive side, an A. On the offensive side, I'm giving all their acquisitions. I'm giving them like a D. I mean, they just haven't made an impact yet. We're talking about 4 games. I'm not rating them for the whole year. McKissick's an undrafted free agent, so I throw him towards the draft. But I see what you're saying. But
We got him from Atlanta, right? He was on Atlanta's squad.
was he
last
on
year.
Atlanta? Okay, well, I would say he had one game he popped, but I'm not gonna really raise him up because that was basically gravy. That wasn't like he's not playing out of necessity early
Sure.
on. He's playing because their main guy got hurt. On the draft wise, I'm giving it a B plus A minus just because the rookies that have played, and they've played a lot of the rookies except for Malik McDowell, who obviously is injured, and Ethan Posick, who he's a young rookie. College rookies don't play very well. Almost everyone has has made an impact. They've got Delano Hill, they've got Shaq Griffin, they've got Chris Carson. They have all these guys that have been drafted and they've played well. Like no one's like shitting their pants once they hit the field. They don't look like young guys that have never played in the NFL. So I'm really happy with that draft. If this progresses, then it's going to be a huge draft for us. And this is the draft we're going to talk about, similar to the 2013 draft or 2012 draft, or 2012 draft, where we got like huge potential Hall of Famers. So that's what I'm excited about. But let's jump ahead to topic number 2, because this is where we talk about kind of the depth, and this is putting you in more control. Topic number 2: if you were the head coach, what changes would you make to the offense, defense, personnel, and coaching staff? And if you don't have something you'd want to change, you don't have to change it. But this is kind of us talking about, like, do we have the right philosophy? Are we putting our players in the best place to win? And we all rated the coaching staff pretty low. We weren't giving them high praise. So obviously we see opportunities to improve. Ross, what would you like to see changed for the next 3 quarters of this year?
Pretty quickly, the offense. I want to go a little retro on offense, and I want to. The fullback we have, Trey Madden's not a old time style fullback. He can catch and he can run as well. I want to run something out of not the I formation. I want to run some plays out of the pro set, which almost nobody does anymore, because I think that makes the defense defend a little more and treat Trey Madden also as a weapon. And also, I think you could also probably put like Lacey in at the same position. Use Lacey with maybe McKissick or with Rawls both on the field. Out of the pro set, and see what that does, just to open things up a bit more. On defense, I want to play a little bit less zone in the middle. I want to go a little bit man-to-man. We've got the linebackers who can cover. Griffin looks like he's okay. I want to play a little bit more man-to-man and play a little more aggressive to see if we can get some more turnovers off of what should be an awesome defensive line. Personnel, I don't think I want to make any cuts or anything like that, but I'm going to make the very controversial call of saying my starter is Luke Wilson and Jimmy Graham comes in situational, because I think right now Jimmy Graham tips off the defense. And the coaching staff, I want to keep Bevel as my offensive coordinator, but what I want to have a designated play caller who works really, really closely with him. I think Bevel does a really good job of making offensive systems and doing the best with a limited budget and things like that. But I think he gets a little lost with his play calling sometimes. So I want to have like a play calling assistant with him who not that's fully autonomous. He works with him very, very closely. It's got to be somebody who kind of understands it intimately, but can kind of like negate some of Bevel's negative tendencies a bit. So I want like a designated play caller. That's where I'm at.
That all sounds like actually pretty good stuff. I like all Ross's answers. On offense, I would try to score more points.
It's a good idea.
Always a good thing.
Yeah, and defense,
Especially
I would probably try to allow less points.
Even better.
And maybe get more turnovers.
That's a bit controversial.
Is this? I don't know if this stuff is in depth enough. I don't know. I don't think I'd make any personnel changes at this point. Maybe heal up some of our injuries. If I were like a deity of sort.
I like that. Even better.
Laying on of hands.
Yeah, I don't know. Coaching. I'd love to say that I'd like to make some changes, but I don't know the answers. Like if I said I don't want Bevel calling plays anymore, I don't know who to replace him with.
Well, Sam plays a lot of Madden.
I play a ton of Madden. Let me tell you. Yeah. Wait until it's my turn, guys. Buckle up.
I would fire Bevel and hire Iro. Roland Deschain from Seahawks.net to call the plays because he's got it all figured out. Last I saw, and coaching. No, I don't. Yeah. I think I like where we're at. I like Pete. I hope Pete stays with us until he doesn't want to do it anymore.
No, for real.
Oh, can I make one more? Can I make one more coaching change or whatever? Or
I love how you ask if you can do it. No, we're gonna stop you. We're moving on. No, of course.
That's the northern influence as well. Ask, Mr. Wakefield. I wanna go for 2 a lot, even when it looks like it's unnecessary.
Hey, I love them going for 2. When they got that penalty and they went for 2, I was like, oh yeah, I like this.
Yeah.
Because it's interesting.
I want to go for 2
when you get the penalty when you're doing the point after attempt with the kick, you can choose to either get 5 yards for the kick or you can get at the 1 if you go for 2. And that play call, I mean, it looked kind of ugly when Russell was like got a guy in his face, but he just like threw it to an empty field and there was just Doug Baldwin.
Did they throw it from the 1 and it worked?
Yeah, I know, right?
Impossible.
I know, but I think that's that the offense was just
was there a bit. Wait, does that play work actually? Wait, there's no way.
Richard Sherman was livid for sure. If I'm a head coach through 4 games, I like where we're going, but I need to make sure we're on the right path. And offensively, I think our personnel, we still don't match up. Everyone talks about up-tempo spread. You know, it doesn't mean just like chucking the ball every play, but what it means is we don't have the formations and we don't have the personnel where we could run a fullback. Trey Madden's kind of a useless player because he's just not that good at lead blocking, you know? And Chris Carson showed like, hey, you know, if you give him a lane, he will still get those dirty 1 to 2 yard plays, and that's what I loved so much about him. But also Trey Madden, because he's not a great blocker, he's not a great guy in pass block, so you're kind of tipping your hand that he's either going to run on a flat route or he's just not going to be that valuable. So it's one of the concerns that I would have is Trey Madden doesn't seem like he has a serviceable role. So what I would like to see is they need to start using Nick Vannett or Luke Wilson as more of like a fullback hybrid where they're lining up in the backfield, moving to the tight end position and kind of putting people in motion, letting Russell Wilson see like, hey, are we getting man? Are we getting zone? Can I motion them wide? I'd like to see them, and that I think gives them more of a spread look because they have more downfield threats that are on the line of scrimmage that have a better chance to get free releases, you know, get a catch, and, you know, use their athletic ability, because that's one of the things about Luke Wilson is he's a super athletic guy. On that touchdown he ran, he basically just like squeaked through. He started from the left side and just ran a drag route essentially across the middle and got lost in the shuffle because everyone else was such a bigger threat, and he just got an easy touchdown. And then on the defensive side, like you were saying, Ross, like I want us to be more aggressive. Like we've got the defense. I'd like to see us take a little bit more chance by sending, you know, blitz from the corner, or give Earl Thomas that one sack that he's never had in his career. Like I think that will be really fun to see. Personnel wise,
seriously, man. Like, do you know? I mean, he plays so deep. Just if you move him up onto the line one time, just watch the offense just have to either call a timeout or freak out.
Pretty much.
Right, sorry, go ahead.
and then the personnel side, it's like you need to figure out what's going on with that fullback position. You're just not getting enough out of Trey Madden. And then from a coaching staff, you can't fire anyone in the middle of the year. You're not going to gain anything out of it. But I think there is something to be said about what you were saying, Ross, about maybe making sure that Bevel is in the best position to succeed. And that means that maybe, hey, you know, you might have to lose your play calling ability for a week or two, and we try something else out. But we'll see. It's again, we're early.
He just gets away from the run so fast.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, let's talk about the homer corner. This one, Zeb, you said was going to be a little bit tricky for you, but you're letting it off anyway. So, the homer corner. If you had to give a speech to the players, what would you want to say to them to get them motivated?
Well, I figured out what my answer is. So, And it's not a speech necessarily, because at least not with my voice or my words. I've had times where, especially when I was younger, where I felt like I could go into that locker room and motivate those guys, tell them how important it was for them to win. But I don't think that doesn't work. I don't think there's anything I could say or do that would accomplish that. What I would do, I don't know if you guys remember back in just before the Super Bowl 48 versus the Broncos, there was a video called Breaking Madden Super Bowl 48 where they went into the Madden game and turned up all the stats for the Seahawks players and turned down all the stats for the Broncos players.
I did.
And then they took the song "The Dead Flag Blues" from the band Godspeed You, Black Emperor, and it's just like this speech. He's just talking, and it's really like grim and dark and weird, and it's just video clips of these giant, massive Seahawks players just crushing these tiny, pitiful little Broncos. I remember that making me so excited for that Super Bowl. Like it was my favorite thing leading up to it, of all the amazing things that happened. And I would just play that in the locker room and be like, look, this is what you're supposed to do. Go crush those pitiful little fools, like destroy them. That's what I do.
Nice. I like the visual aid. Ross, what about you? What are you doing to motivate a team?
I'm more about the visual aid as well. What I want to do is I want to get a video on a super fast camera. What do they call those? When you take something that happens really fast, but it shows it really slow.
Like a high-speed camera?
Yeah, exactly. I want to get like a really high-speed camera showing Usain Bolt's 100-yard dash. And I want to break it down. I want to start with the last 10 meters of the race, showing the last 25 yards of the race, showing how he strongly finished, how he gets his chest out, and talk about it. Like, that's how you win. That's how you win in the last quarter of that race. And that's the message they've always heard, right? Then I want to stop it for a second, and I want to go all the way back and look at the beginning of the race, how he gets out of the blocks. Show the white of his knuckles as he puts the pressure and balances where all his weight's going to be. Show how his muscles flex and how he's timed those exactly right. And show how in the first 25 yards as well, he's already got a big lead. So, of course, you can win it in the last 25 yards, but that first 25 yards is just as important. And if you do build the lead there, you don't have to run as perfectly in the last 25 yards. So I want to make the emphasis there as well. You want to start fast. You want to start fast. That's what I would do.
That's a big philosophy change for the Seahawks.
I know it is, but I'm not saying don't totally de-emphasize how you win at the end. But even their defensive philosophy it actually makes more sense to start fast, because the defense is predicated on kind of defending against the pass. And if we fall behind, a team's run and run and run. We've only got 3 defensive tackles. We've got Richard Sherman like hanging back, daring you to throw deep. So put him in a position they have to throw deep on Richard Sherman and Earl Thompson and make the interceptions. If they just want to run and run and run and run, we don't have any big bodies up front anymore. We got rid of that. Yeah. We have to start fast. It's like they've actually changed the defensive law. They don't have like the big, they don't have the who was the guy they had 79 before
Red Bryant.
Red Bryant. They don't have the Red Bryant type anymore. They got away from that philosophy, right? So if you get away from that, you're daring them to basically, what you want them to do is pass on you. So you got to put them in a position they have to pass on, which means you have to start fast. You have to recognize your philosophy of personnel has changed, so your philosophy of game management has also got to change.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
I would be motivated. I think that would be a fun exercise to see. I would stay away from the visual effects. I obviously think what you guys are doing is really interesting, but what I would focus on if I were given an opportunity to talk to the players is to kind of follow more closely what Pete Carroll says in his books and Win Every Day. And what I would do is I would have them close their eyes and I would talk about visualization. And for me, I'm not a big visualization person, but I'm going out of my comfort zone to try and figure out a way to motivate millionaire and $100,000 players. But the point that I would want to focus on is, what can you see yourself doing? how do you execute? Do you see yourself scoring the touchdown, or do you see yourself in your stance, taking your cut, getting a release, locating the ball, catching it, turning upfield, juking a player, and then scoring? Because I think that's one of the problems that the Seahawks have right now. They're so concerned about what's happening in the future. They're not thinking about what they need to do right now, and that's the offense's problem. They're not executing to the point that they are able to complete plays. They're doing like half of it. They're focusing on the end of it. That's why we've seen these drops. That's why I think in the game against the Niners, we did so poorly, because we had these drops. We had these big plays that came back to bite us because we didn't complete, we didn't execute. And if we do that, I think that we will see ourselves succeed, because the way that the Seahawks finished this last game, they executed perfectly. There were a couple scramble, street ball plays that Russell Wilson had, but they still executed. They looked so good at it. I mean, even Jimmy Graham bounced back from those two, targets where the ball got intercepted, and he came back and he looked great. He caught everything thrown his way like nothing had happened. And that's what I would want the team to focus on. I want them to visualize them succeeding, not just with the results, but all the way through the motions. And I think, it would be a really great way for them to kind of help them refocus, because I think that's maybe a problem that's a little bit harder when it is a more veteran staff. They might take things for granted. And I think that would be a really, at least to me, that's how I would like to think that is a way to reach these guys.
I agree.
Yeah, I like it.
Do you ever use visualization, Sammy, actually, in real life?
No. What I do, so I work with a lot of people, and I basically goad them into everything. So I visualize myself what I want them to think about. So for all my coworkers, when you guys listen to this, here's my trick. I know what I want you to get to. I know the point that I want to make, and I just keep probing until I get the right question that leads you down that path. So if anyone ever figures out what it's like to have a one-on-one with me, it's I already know where I want you to go, and I'm asking the question to probe you into that direction. So that's how I visualize for things for myself, because I'm trying to figure out how to manipulate you into the spot that I want you to go to.
Nice, yes, good old-fashioned manipulation.
But it's all questions. It's all questions. It's all probing questions. That's how I get you there.
So you use like the Socratic method, but like with an evil spin on it.
Not really, because it's my questions they're direct, and they're very precise. Like, I'm asking for very specific things, and I want you to go one way. And if you go the other way, then I ask you a follow-up question to that to kind of route you back to where I want you to go.
All right. I recommend straight off like visualization. So I believe so much these days that. This is going to sound weird. When I interview people now, like when I've got like 3 or 4 people that I'm going to interview and they're sort of waiting to be interviewed, when the interview is supposed to start, I actually go out to them and say, like, your interview's next, but before we do the interview, I want you to visualize. And I coach them through it for 5 minutes, and then I leave the room and I let them visualize, and then I bring them back. And it sounds stupid, but like the quality of my interviews has gone up so much. Just having people like imagine what you're going to be asked, imagine what your answers are, imagine you're speaking confidently and fluidly without stuttering, without lots of ums and likes, and it's actually helped quite a bit, even just interviewing people. I actually can get through some of the nervousness, so I can really get to the quality of them, so I can decide better who I want to meet, because I think they're projecting the best themselves they can. Anyway, that's our philosophy for the moment. Let's move on. One day we're just going to talk. We're going to have a section just on Pete Carroll's book, so read that episode.
Really quick, Lemon Brian Krasno asked us a question. Is Russell Wilson's problem throwing a decent fade route a reason Jimmy doesn't get more red zone targets? That's an interesting question, and I personally think that we don't scheme well for the red zone, which is why we have such huge problems for it. I mean,
I don't think Bevel likes to call us a fades anyway, because I don't think. I mean, you've seen a lot of the Seahawks calling a lot of high percentage stuff. They obviously used to do a lot of mathematical studies, and the fade is just not a high percentage play. It never is for anybody. When it works, it looks awesome, but it's not a high percentage play. I just don't think Bevel likes it. I'm not sure that Russell Wilson's even that bad at it. I just don't think they call out a lot of it. I guess he's not very good.
I have a hard time thinking that Russell Wilson can't throw a decent fade route because he makes every other throw look so easy. I mean, he was so good at it, in that last game in the second half. I wouldn't put it so much on Russell. I think I agree with more of your point. I think it's not really a scheme that they like to go towards because I think, again, the percentages of getting a fade route, you kind of have to have like a couple factors. You have to have the size, you have to have the height, you have to have the jump, and you have to get it in bounds. And
if you've got an athletic quarterback and some athletic tight ends, I think there's a lot more interesting things you can do. I think there's a lot better things you could do with Graham, in theory. But to me, it's interesting because I always thought, come back to like Zach Miller, he was more effective in the red zone for what Seattle likes to do than Graham because he would, for example, like they would look like they're going to run and he would do the block and he'd be on the ground.
That's all play action, but that's predicated on them wanting to play a power run game, and that's that's what helped Luke Wilson get so free. They faked a play action, froze everyone for a half second. He's starting the left side. He just like scoots behind all the linebackers and is just totally free.
And you can't run that very effectively with Jimmy Graham because nobody buys that he's in there to block. Yeah, especially in the red zone. They're not, even if they think it's a percentage because he does in his block. They're not going to buy that. That's not how they're going to guard him.
Well, what they should do is they should start with the big I formation, so they get a fullback, 3 tight ends, and a running back, and then once the defense gets set, motion out, Luke Wilson and Jimmy Graham wide, opposite sides, and then you change your formation, and then still run a play action and see what happens there. Yeah.
Get your crayons out, write them.
I will. I'm going to go draw this play up right now on Madden. Just you wait. All right, let's talk about topic number 4, which is the Los Angeles Rams. We're a whole year after they've moved. I don't know if you guys are remembering to call them the LA Rams. Maybe you are because you guys have fans longer than I have, and you actually remember them maybe playing there. But
Eric Dickerson.
Yeah. The NFC West Los Angeles Rams. They're 3-1. They were 3-1 last year, but this is probably a much different team. Are the Rams contenders? Do you buy, sell, or do you put it on layaway? Ross, what do you think about this new McVay-led team?
I'm not buying that they're true contenders. I'm not buying it. I put that option in for you. I've put them on layaway. I'm buying in a little bit more. Week by week. I'm investing a bit more in them as a real contender. I don't want to completely discount. Until I looked at the stats this week, this past couple of days, looking at them more carefully because we're playing them, I was more buying into them. Now that I look at them more carefully, I'm kind of on layaway. I'm not saying they're frauds, but I'm not quite sure. I'm ready to say they're really contenders yet. So I've got them on solid layaway. I put my $1.50 in every week. By Christmas, I'll know what I'm doing there.
Zeb,
I'm laying them all the way away. Is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I think that Goff is showing to be competent and showing some definite progress and looking like he might be a real quarterback. They've got some young talent on offense. They seem to be able to put up points. I don't know that they've had the best competition yet. I don't think they've faced any great defenses, so hopefully that'll be the equalizer. But then on the flip side, their defense hasn't shown to be able to stop anybody. I mean, they let the 49ers put up how many points on them a couple weeks ago? Literally how many, I don't remember. But it was more than they should have.
They're giving up about 30 points in their last 3 games, and that's against Dallas, San Francisco, and Washington.
Yeah, I like Washington's defense. There's some good hitters back there in their backfield, but regardless, I'm not selling them because I have seen some good intriguing things from them, and I think they're better than they've been in the past recently. So I think I'm gonna have to wait and see a little bit how this plays out over the rest of the season, but I like them. I like what they're doing, and they've been fun to watch, and that's important to me. They've been an enjoyable watch. So hopefully they won't be that enjoyable this coming weekend, but
That's for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that last point, Zeb. I think they're definitely a really fun team to watch, and a lot of it has to do with they score a ton of points. Now, because their defense is so bad, they're also getting scored on equally, so I don't see that as being sustainable. The first win was at home against Indianapolis, and that's when they had Scott Tolzien as their quarterback, and they destroyed them. So no surprises there for anybody. And they lost a one-score game to Washington. They win a game at San Francisco on what I think San Francisco they got jobbed on a bad offensive PI call that would have gotten San Francisco in field goal range, and I thought they would have won that game. And then the Dallas. I think it's impressive that they beat Dallas, but I don't think Dallas is that good of a team either at this point. I think, we're talking about teams that are in the 8 to 20 range. Seattle's kind of in that mix right now as well. So I'm not ready to buy. I don't even think I'm ready to put them on layaway just because I don't think they've proven anything yet. Dallas is maybe the best team that they've played, and Dallas gave up 35 points and the Rams gave up 30 points. Like, that's not a lot of games that you're going to win in the NFL come late in the playoffs. So I'm going to sell for now just because I think they've benefited from an easier schedule. And while Jared Goff has looked a lot better where he was last year to compare with this year, it's been such a huge difference. I don't know how one player can make such huge strides in 1 year without it always being a fluke. It's pretty rare that a player makes that big of a leap in 1 year and is able to sustain that. It's usually a more fluky thing, and you see that with a lot of other quarterbacks as well. So credit to their coaching staff, credit to the fact that they've won 3 of their first 4 games. I wouldn't say anyone's a mirage at this point, but I also don't think that they're going to be a contender down the stretch. That's my takeaway.
Yeah, I think we kind of all feel about the same way about them.
I kind of want them to be a contender, though. I find that I missed that couple years where the 49ers were like a really, really tight, close rival.
Yeah.
It makes it kind of more interesting. As long as at the end of the day, like, we're the ones standing, cool. But if it's kind of tight and you're like, oh my God, they're coming in, I think we play them like on New Year's Eve or the 1st of January this year, right, at home.
Yeah, we always play them like the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season.
Right. I'm pretty sure it's New Year's Eve or the first day of the year.
I think it's
New Year's.
That
game is like, sorry?
Yeah, I think it is New Year's.
Yeah, and if that game is for like the NFC Championship and for home field advantage, for example, how awesome is that game going to be at? And I'm going to be at that game. So
we play the Cardinals on New Year's Eve. The Rams is a couple.
Okay, my bad.
But they're the same.
But still,
the Rams and the Cardinals, they're the same.
Still, like, when the Rams are like, if the Rams is an important game, not I hope we don't just choke this away game. That's so much more fun.
Definitely.
Yeah. Just a quick shout out. Quick shout out to Brian. It's Lyman, not Lemon. Sorry about that. But just a pointer. He chatted to us on Facebook, so I want to make sure we call that out. But thank you for checking out the podcast. So that's our topic. So we're gonna move on ahead. Any final comments about the Rams? We'll talk about predictions and the score, but any comments about this team?
They've got a good set of wide receivers now, don't they? Like they imported Bills receivers and added in Cooper Kupp.
Right. So basically, none of the receivers they had from last year.
Right. And well, they have Tavon Austin.
He's not doing anything on that team compared to the other guys.
Is there a funner name to say in the NFL than Cooper Kupp?
Cooper Kupp.
Cooper Kupp.
Cooper Kupp.
Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp.
Who taught that white boy how to ball like that?
I don't know, man. Put him in the wrong position group in high school. Just like nobody said anything. He's just still playing that position in the NFL.
Hey,
just waiting for someone to move him to tight end.
They were building up his lineage this last week against Dallas because both his father and grandfather played for the Cowboys.
Oh, that's crazy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
What are the chances?
That's cool.
All right. Well, we got a little fantasy update for our podcast. So everyone in our league, for the 3 of us, myself, Zeb, and Ross, we're all 2-2. We are currently seated at 5th, 6th, and 7th, respectively, in the entire league. 3 step
yeah,
drop.
but I'm first on the Seahawks side.
Yes, you are.
By Chris, you have one more point than you.
The 3-step drop is representing well. They're 3-1, 3-1, and then I think it's Lior that's 1-3. So Lior gotta pick that up. Maddie and Zeb. So Maddie's 3-1. Zeb, you're 2-2. There's going to be a matchup. Hopefully Zeb will do us proud and play a kicker that's playing. So that's always a good thing.
I'm taking that limey bastard down.
But our fantasy question is,
I'm playing bye week. Who's bye week?
You're playing bye week?
I'm playing Maddie.
Oh, I got it wrong. So Ross is playing.
Oh, I'm not taking that limey bastard down this week.
Oh no, sorry, Zeb, not this week.
Dude, you're playing against my friend from Dodgeball, Zach.
Tell him to.
He's American. You can take that American bastard down.
Be ready. Tell him he's going down to Chinatown.
But our fantasy question is, when do you officially give up on your team? Like I'm 1-3 in one of my leagues, and last year I went on a winning streak where I was like 0-3 and I won the next 10 games, and then 2 more games in the playoffs and won the entire league. But I knew I had a good team.
I would say 4 to 5 games below 500, and then you might as well just throw in the towel.
I had that actually happen, and it's doing okay for me this year because my team was so bad. I had so many injuries in like the first 3 weeks of the season. I basically sold out my year so that I could get players that I could keep for next year because it was an auction keeper league. I actually made a trade with Ross, and so far it's working out for me.
Good.
Yeah.
Is that why you made the trade?
Yes, my team was awful.
Man, you're playing chess, and I'm playing checkers.
All right, you guys.
I was just trying to win a couple games last year, man. Like trying to not embarrass myself. But
I mean, I'm pretty sure I traded you okay guys, but like, yeah, I mean, they weren't going to be on my team next year, so I figured I got to do.
I mean, I had to make a couple of desperate trades because I had really bad injuries last year.
Yeah,
so I knew they weren't great trades anyway. So
injuries this year are bad. I mean, Ross, we just traded in your league, and I traded you an Andrew Luck that hadn't played, and I really wanted Chris Carson, and he got injured, so. That's bad beat for me. I didn't really want Matavius Bryant. I was like, whatever, throw that guy in because I want Chris Carson. Right. And
right.
Yep.
Well, that's kind of Well, I was gonna send a 2-1, but you hate them, so I threw him in anyway.
Yeah. I saw Chris Carson like yes, click yes, accept.
Zev and I did a trade, and both basically all the 2 major players under both IR now. So yeah. Yeah, trade you an IR guy for an IR guy. Okay.
Nice.
All right. As far as what to give up, I think it's really weak. I mean, defining how you give up. Like, if you give up kind of mentally going, okay, I'm win, that's cool. But, like, I think it's weak sauce if you stop, like setting your team properly and really trying. That's kind of, you got to be in it for everybody. We all have to try.
Oh, yeah. That person's getting kicked out of the league. They should not be welcome back.
Even if you're still setting your team, but you're not even trying to pick up people off of waivers, that's kind of weak sauce too. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna do some predictions. Zeb, since you kicked off topic number 1, you're gonna be the first on all of these. What's your prediction for the final score?
Final score 35 to 13.
Ooh. That's Seahawks winning or Rams winning?
That's Seahawks winning, of course.
Ross?
Their offense seems kind of legit, but I also feel like they're a bit tailor-made for us. I mean, they're going to throw deep to Sammy Watkins? I don't think so. Going to throw across the middle to Cooper Cup with Bobby standing there? Okay, I'm going to go... Let's assume the offense stays on a roll because that's funner to assume. So let's say 38-17.
Ooh, you guys are loving those high scores.
38-17, yeah. I'm going to go with that.
Even though I don't think the Rams are contenders, I still think they've kind of got our number. I'm going to say the Rams win a squeaker 24-21. There's so many questions that I have, and I think the Seahawks can answer them. But for now, I'm not overly enthusiastic. I don't think the Seahawks
Okay, I have a
particularly
question.
play
Then.
well.
You say
on
like they
grass.
have our number. Did they have our number, or did Jeff Fisher have? Because I kind of think it was Jeff Fisher. I don't know. I think he was just kind of obsessed with the Seahawks and beating them to the expense of everything else.
I think that defensive front. I mean, they changed their defense. They went from a 4-3 to a 3-4. But Aaron Donald, he can be
Aaron
so
Donald
good.
looks like Aaron Donald this year so far to me.
Yeah, I mean that's why I'm very hesitant to say that they're going to win. But maybe
Yeah, he
I'm
looks
just
like
playing.
Ronald McDonald.
I'm playing mind games with myself. I'm trying to psych myself out and say, oh, the Seahawks are going to lose. So when they win, I'll be like, oh, stupid Sam, should have known. So just mind games with myself.
I like your style.
All right, who starts for the Seahawks at running back? Lacey, Rawls, Procise, or McKissick?
Give me Rawls or give me death.
Healthy scratch last week.
Well, that's because we had Carson. Like, I think that the stats sees Carson and Rawls as essentially kind of the same person, with Carson slightly better.
Yeah, he was
I
drafted.
want to see Rawls get back to his old self, man.
Yeah, Ross, who's
Is
your
Procise
starter?
healthy?
He's practicing again apparently, so maybe not. I think he's practicing.
I mean, they've super glued the glass back together.
Yeah, the Gorilla Glue has finally set. That's what it is.
Yeah. I don't know, like, for me, like, it's almost missing the point. It's kind of like asking who's the starting wide receivers or starting cornerbacks these days. It kind of doesn't matter because it doesn't really indicate who's going to get even the majority of the carries anymore for Seattle. It looks like it's just going to be game flow. I'm going to say Rawls starts, but I'm going to say Lacey gets the majority of the calls this game.
Yeah, I'm with you, Ross. I'm saying Lacey gets a start and who's going to get a bulk of the carries. I think what they're going to try and do is he played well down the stretch. They went to more of a power-ish run game without a fullback, and I think if they continue that Lacey will get the touches. So
I don't think it'll always be like every game, but it's particularly like the way the Rams are set up, like with the 3-man front and Aaron Donald like really wanting to go after the quarterback. I think you can exploit that. I think they can run it. I think if this is the kind of game you want to run, like the Lacey power run, like you said.
Yeah.
But I could see in other games, for example, against the Cardinals, I think you want somebody with more speed out there.
Yeah.
And I'd want to go with Rawls or even McKissick. McKissick looked really good, didn't he?
He looked super athletic.
Yeah.
Who's going to have more TDs? Russell Wilson or Jared Goff?
Zach. Russell by a lot.
By a lot, okay.
Yeah. By like 4.
That would be awesome.
What was the score you said? Does that even work out?
Yeah, you both had them in the 30s.
Okay.
Put up a 30 burger.
I think it's going to be a tie. 2
like 2-2?
Yeah.
Because Goff's not throwing 3 touchdowns on us. That's for damn sure.
Well, I think 2 each, and then we're gonna then Lacey is gonna have a couple running touchdowns, and maybe McKissick. I don't know.
I like it.
I'm gonna say,
man, I overreacted and picked up McKissick in like all my fantasy leagues, so you can see why I'm kind of like
I'm gonna say that Wilson has more touchdowns, but I'm still predicting them to lose, so it's gonna be like 2-1. Who's gonna have more sacks, Seattle or the Rams?
I'm gonna.
A lot of hemming and hawing here.
Say it's gonna be a toss-up.
Toss up.
Yeah, I think we're gonna both have about 3 each.
So what's your? So it's like you're under over 6.5. You're gonna go over sacks. You don't.
I'm saying about 3 each.
So you would pick under.
Okay.
What about you, Ross?
I think the Seahawks are going to have more. I think the Rams are going to get a lot of pressure, but I think Wilson's mostly going to be able to avoid him. He'll probably have 2 sacks against him. I think we're going to get 4. I don't think Goff has actually has played against a line like ours so far.
Yeah.
Although,
Goff. What if we break him?
We broke him last year. Do you remember that play where he was running on the sidelines and then Sherman hit him out of bounds? But if Sherman didn't hit him, like Cam Chancellor was like right there.
Yeah.
What if we like break him permanent? Like, what if we just end his career like RG3-ish?
I'm going to say that the Rams are going to have more sacks because I think that Seattle and Russell Wilson.
Tammy's turning like a Ram homer, man.
No, not a Ram homer. It's just I'm not very optimistic about this game. And it's not going to be like 10-1. It's going to be like 3 sacks to 1 because I don't think the Rams are going to put Goff in a position where he's going to really get touched. They're going to do a lot of quick drops. They're going to throw the ball really quickly. They're not going to do a lot to sit back there and let him get picked off by our defensive line.
Gurley was manly last. Gurley was super manly last.
Yeah. All right. So this one's kind of a unique one. So they're playing in LA, close to the Hollywood Hills with the giant Hollywood sign. What is the over/under on the number of cuts during the commercial breaks where you will see that Hollywood sign? 2.5.
Oh.
2.5 over/under.
Over.
Over.
I'm going to say under. I think they're going to focus on their
it's played
stupid
out.
new stadium. They're going to do. Maybe they'll show like the Trump on the Walk of Fame. I think there's so many things that they're trying to pump up about the the Rams playing in LA that they're going to try and stay away from like a Hollywood feel. So I don't think they're going to really.
Well, they can't show the stadium because the stadium's not going to be full.
Right?
Right? I mean, like, I don't know. Like, you can't show Trump because it's such a divisive thing. Anything with his name these days. I kind of agree with you, but for a different reason. I'm sort of regretting my choice because I kind of think like it's a bit stereotypical and kind of played out to always show that sign. It's like kind of a 1980s and 90s broadcast, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's like the Seahawks showing the Pike Place Market with the fishmongers throwing fish all the time.
But don't they do that for? Do they do that a lot still?
Just on the national games. I mean.
Yeah, I think for like Monday Night Football, it's like God damn, every damn person has to go down there and catch salmon.
I'm equating it more to like when they play a Nirvana song going to commercial break.
So every commercial break.
Basically.
Wow, come on, they do Pearl Jam sometimes.
Yeah, no, I think you're good for about 2 to 3 Nirvana. If we're doing well, if we're winning, or if we score, every time we score. I think about.
If it was like, yeah.
Right. So here's.
I think there's going to be a walk of, maybe some kooks along the Walk of Fame, and maybe the Chinese theater.
All right. Here's the trickiest question to be asked. Will the special teams run a trick play for the Rams? No more Jeff Fisher, but they still have that punter. Zeb, yes or no?
No.
Ross?
I think he had a pass last week as well. Yes.
I am also going to go with yes because I think that's one of the underutilized skills of their punter. I know he's from like Washington State and he apparently is supposed to be a nice guy, but what I remember most is every time he's played Seattle, he's had like a trick play. So I don't see them changing that even without Jeff Fisher there.
That fake punt a couple of years ago, where like the fake return, I don't know how you would call that.
Yeah,
that was freaking brilliant.
Yeah,
but we turned around the next season and did it to somebody else.
We did it. Yeah.
How do you even make that work?
That's the one where Sherman got the punt return and he was like pissed that he couldn't break it for a touchdown.
Yeah. How do you even make that work though? Like you're the one punting. Like I don't understand how you fake them out. So
I think it's the idea that the punter doesn't tell the coverage team which way he's punting until it's punted. The punter knows, but the coverage team doesn't. They're just saying like,
well, at the time they said like the coverage team should have known, but apparently they had noticed a bad habit in the Seahawks where the coverage team tends to not go where the play is called, but they tend to follow where the returner goes.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember like so. That was like a tendency of the Seahawks, and then apparently the Seahawks started scouting other teams and the same thing, so they did it. I mean,
yeah.
I watched that play again today. I watched it break down. Stedman Bailey is supposed to be like one of the two guys on the outside, and he just like leaves his man and goes in the other corner, and everybody's following. What's his name? Austin in the other corner. It was weird.
Yeah.
Really it was really brilliant. It was really embarrassing. It really made me time, but like, objectively, it's one of the most brilliant things I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something you see like a high school playoff kind of thing, right? A high school football game. That was just funny stuff like that. Anyway, that was really good.
And gentlemen, that's our podcast. Shout-outs.
Shout out to Tony, who's having a hard time this month because he's got to cancel all the stuff at the end of the month to go to Taiwan. Don't worry about it, bud. Just down.
Go to triplebpodcast.com and also shout out to my brother Joe Guns and his wife Lindsay, and they are expecting their second child.
Congratulations. I want to give shout outs to my coworkers. Everything I told you about my one-on-ones, that was a lie. Don't believe me. I'll show you the next time we meet. Want everyone to check out the Hawkscast forum. Find it at forum.hawkscast.com, or you can get it at hawkscast.com. Check us out at Twitter at Seahawks Podcast. You can also check out Zeb on Twitter. All of us are on Twitter. Just go to Seahawks Podcast and you'll find us. And thank you for checking us out. And go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.